going to go ahead and get everyone checked in. Jessica Powell, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, David?
Not bad, not bad. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Talbert House, right?
Yes.
So you're with, awesome. All right. Mike Benkert, is that right?
Yes.
Hi. And you are with the architecture firm, is that right?
Correct. PCA Architecture.
Okay, welcome.
Thanks.
Jennifer Walke, you could unmute, tell me who you're representing here today.
Hello, I'm with the model group representing the developer.
All right. So we also have Wes Menzel, our zoning plans examiner here. Hi, Wes.
Good morning.
All right. I need to read through our hearing script, which will basically just cover the procedure for the hearing, and then we'll be able to proceed. So this is the April 26, 2023 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. The case before us today is case number ZH20230044. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any potential opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any potential opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If we did have anyone here from the public, they would then have an opportunity to speak after the applicant had presented its case. I will give the zoning plans examiner Wes Menzel an opportunity to provide any testimony in addition to his staff report. In the event any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument that was made in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. For our purposes here today, I know that we have someone from Model Group, Talbert House, and the architect. You all can orient your presentation however you'd like. One or all of you can speak in any order. Really, I'm pretty liberal about how you guys want to present this to me. Just give me some background on it, why you think it's, why you think I should approve the requested relief, and why each particular variance you think is necessary for this project. I'll then go to Wes, give Wes an opportunity to provide any testimony. I'll ask some questions along the way. You guys can make any closing statements, and we'll wrap it up. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or make any comments. If there are any technical difficulties with the Zoom technology, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those on the fly. To the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, though, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. All right. Last thing to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. If you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, asking any questions, really doing anything other than just strictly observing, the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if that's you, if you could make sure that you are off mute. I'm just going to do this collectively for everyone that would like to testify. Need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And could you also raise your right hand?
Yes.
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 All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Okay, who'll be taking the lead here on the presentation today?
So Mike, you want to just go over high level the variances that we're requesting. You can speak to them more technically than I can.
Yeah, and those were outlined in our application and also on the staff report. I don't know if we want to go through that at some point, but that's what I'll read from in terms of the variance is requested, which is
Sure, yeah.
which was on our application as well. So the first one, in terms of details of the zoning relief required, we had section 1703-2.100 part E. It's a variance. It's the proposed building requires a front setback variance of 3 feet to allow a 13-foot setback at the northeast corner of the building. A maximum of the 10-foot setback is allowed.
Yeah, and just real quick, just to make sure I'm framing this correctly, this is an existing building that will be demolished, and then a new facility or a new structure is going to be placed there. Is it one single structure?
Correct.
Okay,
Um,
got it.
Yeah, and I would just add that if it's helpful for the city, I mean, we can go into detail on these variances, or we can kind of do high level. I don't know what typically happens. I just you know, you've studied them as well. So if we want to short circuit anything, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, all of the above happens, but I think that why don't we start with high level, and I'll dig in or ask questions on anything that want a little bit more detail.
Yeah,
So
so
sorry,
it
I
is
just wanted,
it is a demolition of a current site that is required to be affordable. It's got a long-term affordability in perpetuity covenant on the property, so we cannot do anything else with it. It doesn't function as is, and I'll get into that when but just kind of the preface to all of this is it's demolition of an existing structure that's kind of obsolete, crime-ridden, really tough to operate, new construction, same footprint. And then Mike, if you want to just high level talk about the variances.
Yeah, I can do that. And is it helpful to share, do a screen share with the staff report in our application so that you have visuals for this? Or
sure, yeah,
Yes.
Okay,
yeah, that'll work.
I was pretty much just reading from,
The staff report.
yeah.
Yeah,
Reading from
and I have the staff report in front of me too. I mean, whatever you can do to sort of contextualize that a little bit. So like why do you need the 3 feet? Right.
Gotcha.
In the front. Like, is there something about the property or the circumstances of the property that make it impractical for you to build to the 10 feet setback, that sort of thing?
Correct. Can you see my
I can.
screen
Yes,
on
we can see.
page 3?
Yep. And cursor.
So
Yep.
a lot of the issue with the setback is the way Gilbert Avenue is not running parallel to the front face of the building. Most of the buildings along Gilbert in this area, including the existing structure, which you can see in the image above and shown on the site plan below, are not parallel to Gilbert. So the setback at one end of the building versus the other end of the building, it gets narrower. So we're not able to, with what we're proposing, and nor does the current building, able to have that setback. So we're going from 3, oh, sorry. So in our current plan, you can see here where a setback, this is a 10 feet dashed in, and we're requesting a 13-foot setback at this location right here. Just because you can see if we move the building up any closer, we're getting past where the property line is. So it's kind of from a practical standpoint, we need to be able to, in that one area, get relief and have the additional 3 feet to allow for a 13-foot setback that area.
Got it. Sure. So the majority of the front then is setback compliant. It's really just that small sort of triangle up there towards the, I assume that's the northeast.
Correct.
That needs the relief. Okay, that makes sense.
The second variance we have is with regards to having the building along Gilbert not having a porch or stoop at the front of the building, which in this case is the frontage that's along Gilbert. And that is something that we are requesting for just the practical use of this project and safety of the residents. And I also like to note that the current facility is set up this way as well. There's no front entry door porch along Gilbert as well. So the way that the site works, this is what is being proposed, is that we have our main entry off of the parking lot and drive to the south of the property. So from a security standpoint, we're having a gate along here that will allow you to get into a single entrance that's monitored and controlled. And Jessica can speak to why that's preferred from the standpoint of Talbot House and providing a safe environment for residents and for the community.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. This is the side of the form-based code that the advocates don't always
Sure.
consider. So that makes perfect sense on number 2.
Okay. The third is, so this is really similar to number 2 actually, whereas the one requests a porch and stoop, this one is for access indoors on Gilbert. So I'm kind of covering both of those for the reasons we talked about, the stoop and the door. We don't have any entry directly off of Gilbert. It's off that drive and parking lot to the south.
Okay.
And then this one, the proposed parking lot has 3 spaces within the 40-foot setback, and a variance is required to allow spaces, these 3 spaces within 40 feet of the right of way. So from a 40-foot setback, we're requesting to have some additional parking spaces within that area. This is how the site is currently configured. We're, for the most part, using the parking lot in a similar configuration as to what is there. And with how compact this site is, we're just requesting to be able to, when we go back with this parking spot, to get the number of spaces we need for this property to allow for additional ones within that 40
Okay.
feet.
Gotcha. That makes sense. In
There's
regards to
actually,
parking,
yeah, and there's actually fewer within that 40 feet than what'll be currently there, since we only have parking on this side and we're adding this drive here.
gotcha. Is there currently any buffering or screening or landscaping with your parking lot? Is there any plan to add any of that? It looked like there might be some landscaping in those plans there. But
Yeah, so we'll have along this area north of the drive, we'll have some trees and landscaping along where they have this paved area that's a outdoor space for the use of residents within this fence line.
got it. And in terms of parking also, I mean, is this mostly then for people like staff, or I guess without more context on the use of the structure, I'm not certain what the parking demands might be.
Jessica
Sure.
might be able to
Yeah,
speak to that.
is this going to be a rental apartment or rental development? It's mainly going to be parking for our residents.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Number 5, the variance curb cut to the parking lot driveway is 22 feet wide and requires a variance of 8 feet to allow the 22-foot curb cut, which exceeds the 14-foot limit. So really with that, we're requesting, and this is the way that the property is currently configured. We're actually reusing the existing drive apron. But having that 22 feet will allow for two-way traffic. So if someone's pulling out of the parking lot, someone else can pull in. So that variance is really just to allow this thing to work with the site we have and to reuse what's currently existing from a driveway standpoint.
And the final variance was
Okay.
the fence, right, Mike?
Yes, so going back, and then the sixth one is a variance for a 6 foot tall, 50% opaque fence along Gilbert. Requires a 2 foot height variance, going from the 4 feet that's allowed up to 6 feet. And that is, the reason for that is for safety and security purposes. The going from 6 foot makes it something that is less easy to climb and get over than what is than the 4 foot. You can see in this plan right here, this curvilinear area, all of this is outdoor space for use of the residents, and the intent is to, provide a space that's secure but usable for the people here. And the 6 foot, the 6 foot height for that is what we feel is necessary for that. And Jessica can speak to that as well, based on how Talbot House currently operates and some of the issues they've had.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. So there will be a 6 foot fence around the entire perimeter of the parking lot, or the entire perimeter of the property.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that is for the majority of the site. We don't need a variance for that. That's something that is permitted. We're just the variance request is just along for the portion that's along Gilbert, and the style of the fence is similar to what we have shown, to be decorative, and so you can still see through it, and it's very similar to what is currently on site from a aesthetics standpoint. It'd just be a couple feet higher.
Is it currently 4 feet?
It looks, looking at this picture, it looks like it's actually taller than that. I'm not sure based on how tall the people are. So I haven't measured it, but it might be close to 6 feet already. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, Jessica, is there anything you can put on the record here or provide to justify the height difference?
Yeah, so just I'll back up a little bit to say this is currently a rental property. And like I said, there is a long-term affordability covenant on this property, so it can only be affordable, and which is great, because that is Talbot House's mission, is to provide more affordable housing. So it's consistent with the work that we do. And Talbot currently has over 20 rental properties and over 400 rental units. This building represents less than 5% of our rental units. In the short time that I have been at Talbot House, it is in its current configuration one of the most challenging properties that I have to deal with. And that's because just the retrofitting of the current property, which was a school and a gymnasium with a cafeteria, into apartment units, has been challenging. There's lots of exits and entrances to the building, so there is constantly trespassers coming onto the property. When you try to track them down within the property, they go out a back door or a side door or do a stairway. We have lost over $250,000 on this property operationally last year. We're on track to lose a similar amount this year. That's because of the expenses that we've incurred in maintenance and security details, but also what you have currently is a huge property, but it can only accommodate 24 units. So there's not the number of units that you really need to do kind of to operate in the black on this. So it's just absolutely a tough property. One of the first things we did with this was to say, what can we do to keep the existing property, add some more units, better functionalize the space? We spent a good amount of resources and time with our architect to see, could we rehab the current building? The plans that we were able to come up with only came up with an additional like 10 units. So it was pretty insubstantial. And then we still had the environmental crime issues that we're dealing with. So that brings us to today, which is working on constructing a building that is in the same footprint, that is very respectful of the same like shape, architecture, configuration, setting on the property that the current space is in, but with more units as well as more safety features. So that's kind of what brings us here today. I would just say that, in the context of all of that, I think we meet the standards for a variance, although the conditions giving rise to the variance is something that is caused by Talbot House or is within our control. The variances that we're requesting are not contrary to the intent of the code. What you heard Mike just say is, hey, a lot of this is similar to how it already is. So we're configuring the building in the same footprint. It's respectful of how the property architecturally lines up and visually looks on the street as the other buildings and the current old building do. There's nothing that is detrimental or injurious to the public health or safety with what we're asking. If anything, it enhances safety for reasons that you've heard. And then the strict application of the code would be impracticable. So, all of the things that we talked about, really, we need to do in order to make this building flow and be efficient and operate to its maximum potential. And we need these variances to protect kind of our rights and the rights of other property owners. So on that, I would just say that these variances enable us to do a new building that enables us to keep the building affordable, which is what we want to do, but also is legally required kind of through this affordability covenant. And we're being consistent with the design of the other properties in the vicinity. Finally, development is in the public interest. It conforms with the underlying form-based code. It will not adversely impact traffic or have any other adverse impacts. If anything, it's going to mitigate the current adverse factors that are contributing to crime and vandalism and other challenges with the property. And it's compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. It benefits Talbot House because we're going to be able to go from a building that is losing substantial amounts of money operationally to one that is breaking even. And we're also providing a cleaner and safer building for the community, for our residents, and we're able to increase affordable housing that is sorely needed in the community. The final thing I will just add is that on Thursday, April the 13th, the Walnut Hills Area Council General Body voted unanimously to support our variance request. And on Thursday, April the 20th, the Walnut Hills Business Group voted unanimously to support our variance request. So we have support from the community on this as well. I don't have letters of support here today, but they are forthcoming. But the record can and should reflect that support is present. So that is all I have. If there's any questions, let me know.
Thank you for that. Only question is, did you say that you've lost 250,000 because of security issues and maintenance? Is that just to pay for security details, or is that actual like vandalism and theft that has occurred on the property?
It's mainly security, but it's also vandalism, theft, maintenance. So as an example, we spent $6,000 adding additional security cameras and lighting to the property. I mean, that was something we hadn't budgeted for, but the crime challenges had gotten to the point where this was before we really knew, okay, what are we going to do with this property? How are we going to handle it? We put that money into it. And again, it's just been a constant, like, removing, we went through the city, Cincinnati Police Department to do a CEPTED assessment, crime prevention through environmental design. And out of that came a lot of recommendations, like work on cutting down all of the shrubbery so people can't hide drug paraphernalia, put lighting in the alley, fence off the alley. So a lot of it is just things that we do to try to mitigate the environmental design, but also it's security. It's also foundation issues, plumbing, old building, also operates as permanent supportive housing, and our tenants, come with trauma and are sometimes hard on the units. So there's challenges just with maintenance of the units that are hard because of the tenants, but harder because the building is old.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I don't think I have any more questions. Unless there's anything else from Tabor House, I'm going to give Wes an opportunity to weigh in here, provide anything in addition to a staff report. Wes, is there anything you'd like to say?
Just maybe highlight a couple of things that the proposed building, as Mike mentioned, the proposed building is the massing and design and location is similar to what's there now. So there's like, a compatibility match kind of thing. And then the parking and driveway, those are existing conditions. We're just kind of formalizing what's there already. And as you mentioned earlier, the form-based code is a little bit tricky to apply. So that's why those are in there. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Wes. Anything else in closing or otherwise before we adjourn?
I should shut up, but I just want to reiterate that when we met with the business group last week, one of the things that they said, and it struck me, Wes, with what you just said, which is these variances are things that are already existing with the current layout. So we're not looking for a deviation of what's been there for over 100 years for many of them. And the Walnut Hills Business Group chair said something to that effect, like, really, shouldn't you be emphasizing the fact that you're really not asking for changes? Like, you're trying to respect the current kind of layout of the building. So I just want to highlight that we're not deviating from what's there. We're trying to kind of preserve a lot of that with the design, and that happens to require variances.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly, and that is something sort of a catch with the zoning code when you want to build something new or make those sort of changes. It does trigger these, and I think this is one of those cases. I think you're right, Jessica, where it's not a substantial change, and that should be a consideration when trying to make a determination of whether this is appropriate, which I have after reviewing the application and the staff report, and hearing testimony here today. I believe that this is appropriate, and it would be impractical to strictly enforce the zoning code to this project. So I'm going to approve the requested relief. That's sort of a provisional approval until I formally write out a decision, which will be the formal approval. I mentioned at the beginning that takes about 2 weeks. I'll do whatever I can to expedite that for you guys. But just based on the current queue that I have, I think that's a pretty accurate estimate. As soon as I finish that, I put into a PDF. I email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. You all will have it really just moments after it's complete. As soon as you have that, Wes can approve the permitting on the zoning side, and the project can move forward. Any questions about any of that or anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. If you do have any questions in the meantime, or you want a status update on the decision, feel free to reach out to me directly. Happy to answer any questions for you guys. Looks like a great project. Wish you the best of luck. And